Today we're going to talk about the myth of the starving artist. You see, some artists understand a few of the basic concepts of business. I'm going to talk about one of those concepts of business today. I like to call it the table. The table is really simple. It has a top where everything sets upon. All of your different business things and you who you are sit upon this table. And it is supported by 4 legs. And if the right 2 of those legs were to go out under you, the table would still be okay. If 3 were to go out, it would probably be bad and the table would fall. However, if 1 leg goes out, you'll always be okay. Now imagine that each of these legs is a line of income or a profit center. That's right. What you as the artist need to establish is your table. Your tabletop is everything that you are. Your legs are what keep you supported and standing and going, period. It's an interesting concept to me that a lot of artists don't seem to understand. We're creatives. That means we have marketable skills. Today's homework is really simple. Take out a list of all of your skills and think about the ways that you could provide yourself with 4 solid legs on your table. Now, you might be wondering what some of those ideas are. Well, let me give you a few of those. I myself work with stock photography, and that is a small line of income for me. On the other hand, I also work with straight up photography going into hospitals and clinics. And that's sort of like commissioned work, except it's very specific on the needs for what the photography has to be. And that's one of my larger table legs. You see, what I've done is I've started to create a solid foundation here. How else have I earned income? Well, I'm a creative. And so visually speaking, I know how to put a website together. So I went and I learned how to do all of the mechanics of a website, and from time to time, not as much anymore, I build websites for other people. That is a line of income. All of those lines of income help to feed and support the artwork. I never count on my fine art being my line of income and my only line of income. Now, I'm very fortunate in that I do have sales on a regular basis with my fine art, but I don't bank on that, because the bottom line is at any twitch within the market or, our financial systems, art is going to nosedive just like it did when the housing bubble broke. And then for years you heard everybody say, I'm not selling. So there are a lot of outside influences that affect art selling that we're not in control of. And that is exactly why we need to have these other legs on our table to support us. See, here's my thought on it. I really believe that when an artist is an artist, they must create. And if they're not creating, they are doing damage to their soul. And I'm sure a lot of you recognize this. Think back to when you weren't creating as much, and then think to the times when you were. Where did you feel better and more whole and fulfilled? Clearly, it's in the times when you're making art. And I'm not going to let anything take away from that, including income. I'm also not going to let the income on my fine art taint what I might make. So if I just completely consider that as extra bonus, I'm not worried, it could never sell, and I'm okay, and then use my other skills to feed the creative beast, so I'm still doing creative things and things that feed my soul, I now have produced the funding and the stability to be able to make art freely. That in turn allows me to put art freely made out into the world. And that seems to actually be far more successful than I make art. That's the only way I make my living. It's a very unpredictable living, and it's not stable. So far we've talked about lines of income and profit centers. Both of those concepts are really important, but I've broken it down to a simple leg on a table for you. It's a myth to be a starving artist. I actually know very good painters who do wonderful, beautiful, fine art, and on the side they do dog portraiture. I actually know several people who do pet portraiture, and they go beyond dogs. They do birds and they do cats, which led to a really interesting cat show I was at one time, but that's a story for another time. I will tell you, though, don't go to cat shows. That's my official verdict on it. They're very weird. But you see, what they have done is they have provided themselves with a client base and are servicing that client base for a need they have and supporting themselves. This idea that an artist has to be starving is one that needs to be let go of immediately. I would actually venture out and say, I actually believe that you should consider all of your fine artwork as non-income producing. Here's the bottom line. The minute it becomes about the money, the artwork changes. And that's a problem because that's not pure artwork. Now, of course, that's a little bit different if you're in the crafts field and maybe even the artisan area. That's what we're going to talk about in our next video. The bottom line is, jot down all of your skills. If you can draw, maybe you can be an illustrator. There's jobs on Fiverr for that. If you do graphic design, maybe you can design logos for that extra income. Again, Fiverr is a great place to look for people who are looking for work and maybe post your skill set and get those occasional jobs. If you also like to write on the side, maybe some copy editing will work. If you like to create, visual things, there are people looking for it typically. You just have to find them and then find a way to let them find you. There are also people I know who have taken to having a successful art career and then doing some coaching. I myself do a little bit of that, but I don't consider it a line of income. It's interesting how that works. I view it as we all should be giving back and helping each other out. So if you have somebody you know needs graphic design and you know an artist that does it, maybe put a referral over to that person and say, hey, check this person out. We should all be helping each other out on these fronts. I think that managing your cash flow begins with knowing you need to have more than one line of income or one table leg. I mean, look at any real business out there. They all have more than one line of income. I mean, could you imagine going to Taco Bell and only getting crunchy tacos and nothing else? Could you imagine going to the grocery store and they only sold one category of groceries? Could you imagine gas stations as an example? They actually don't make their money on gas. They make their money on all the things we buy when we go to get gas. They don't rely upon the gas. That would be a mistake because they don't make their money there. So think about all of these concepts and look at how you have skills that are marketable and you don't have to be a starving artist. Now let's talk about how starving artists handle themselves. This is a pet peeve of mine. There are a couple of things that I think are really tacky. Crying about being a starving artist is really tacky, but it also is something else. It also tells everybody who's following you, nobody buys my artwork. Is that the vision you want out there? I mean, the reality is most artists who are starving probably still have some sales. It's just not enough to cover the bills. But you've just told everybody nobody buys your work. That's called perception. See, perception makes a big difference in any type of business, whether you're an artist or anything else. What we put out into the world really makes a difference on how people view us. And when you're doing things that are a little bit tacky or nobody's business in all reality, you send out a perception that's really not good. And I know a lot of people want to get on this bandwagon of starving artists support me, but really, why would you want to support someone nobody else does? Think about that for a minute. Here's another thing that I don't think is very helpful on the whole idea of profit centers. When you go out into the world and you post or say or do anything that leads people to believe nobody understands the artist or you don't understand how hard it is when you ask me why my rates are so high, you don't have to justify it to anybody. And the minute you do start justifying it, you have a problem. Think about this for a minute. How much of your effort do you put out into the world versus how much of your final product you put out into the world? People tell me this all the time. You make it look so easy. And yeah, sometimes I do. But I'll tell you what is also true. They also tell me that they love seeing the works in progress and they like seeing the fails because it gives them a better understanding of how hard it actually is. There's this misnomer of put only your best work out there. And I agree with that on every leg of the table. Put your best work out there because that's where your income should be coming from, and you only put the best work out there then. But on the art side, it's a little bit different. One, it's not a table. It's not a leg. It's not anything. It just is, and you're doing it freely. The other thing is that people really don't understand what it's like to be an artist. So when you treat your artwork like you would any other business, even though in this one respect it is different, what you really end up doing is telling everybody it really is that easy. You undervalue yourself there. Now, I'm not saying you put out more failed attempts than you do good attempts. I'm just saying, think about what you are putting out there. Are you giving people who follow you the entire picture? Because if you're not, they're missing out on a huge part of the struggle we face. So think about these things for just a minute. Consider what types of things you can add into your repertoire for income. And then really consider all the ways you put things out into the world. And is it appropriate? Now you might ask, what does that have to do with, having these other things that provide income? Well, it's all about perception. Remember what I said. This all comes down to you, who you are as a person. And if you're putting things that make people feel embarrassed or ashamed, or things that make you not accessible and they don't know what to say and they're uncomfortable, why would they come to you for any of those other lines of business? I mean, what happens when you're upset about that line of business? Is that going to become public as well? See, perception is a funny thing. Perception is not just about whether you're a starving artist or an artist making money. It's about what you put out into the world and who you attract because of that. No line of business and no art career can be successful when you are putting things out into the world that are less than nice, positive, upbeat, and happy. I think everybody in this day and age really gets that art is hard. Being an artist is hard. We've heard this so many times that now it just kind of sounds like whining. And is that the type of person you want to hire? And is that the type of person's work that you want hanging in your home? Couple of really big concepts here. Think about it. Make a list. Where are those lines of income for you? And how can you maximize them while still maintaining your time to make art? It's a juggle. That's what we are asked to do all the time. So really consider, after this concept in this video, what your line of incomes are, how you're going to increase income there so that your art can be made in the most free of ways and allow you to put the best of things out there. And by best, I don't mean your best work. I mean put the best stuff out there. Put the positive, the happy, the upbeat. Remember, all real works of art look as though they were created in joy. Robert Henri. One of my favorite quotes. It is posted on my desk and I look at it every day because this is the true statement. Happy draws a crowd. Negative just pushes the crowd away.